I always thought I knew my sister. Growing up, Melissa and I shared everything: clothes, secrets, dreams. She was the spontaneous one, charming and vibrant, while I was the responsible sibling, the one who made plans and followed through. At 45, I had built a stable life as a financial advisor with my own practice, a modest but comfortable home in the suburbs, and a retirement fund that made me proud. I had dedicated 20 years to building this security, brick by brick, while Melissa flitted from one passion to another, one relationship to the next. When Melissa met Roger at a destination wedding in Bali, I was genuinely happy for her. At 38, she seemed to have finally found someone who matched her energy while providing some stability. Their whirlwind romance moved quickly, too quickly perhaps, but I was just relieved to see her settled. 6 months after they met, she called me, practically bursting with excitement. "Eleanor," he proposed. "Roger proposed last night at Chateau Rosemont." I remembered smiling into the phone, feeling that familiar mix of happiness and concern that had characterized our relationship since childhood. "That's wonderful, Mel. I'm so happy for you." It was perfect. "The ring is stunning. But Elle, we need to talk. Can I come over tomorrow? There's so much to plan." I should have known then what was coming. The signs were all there. Melissa arrived at my house the next evening with a bottle of champagne and wedding magazines spilling out of her designer tote. She hugged me tightly, her engagement ring catching the light as she waved her hands excitedly. We sat on my patio, glasses filled with bubbling champagne, as she outlined her vision. "We want a winter wedding at the Alpine Lodge Resort. A weekend. Celebration, 200 guests, ice sculptures, a 10-piece orchestra." Her eyes shone with a familiar intensity. "It'll be like a fairy tale, Elle. Everything I've ever dreamed of." I nodded, already calculating the astronomical cost in my head. "That sounds beautiful, Mel. But have you and Roger discussed the budget?" Her smile faltered slightly. "Well, that's partly why I wanted to talk to you." She reached for my hand. "The wedding package at Alpine Lodge is $50,000. With our other expenses, we're looking at around $75,000 total." I nearly choked on my champagne. $75,000? Mel, that's a down payment on a house. I know. She waved dismissively. "But this is once in a lifetime. Roger has some savings, and I've been putting money aside. We just need a loan for the venue deposit and some of the bigger expenses." I felt the conversation shifting into familiar territory. Throughout our lives, I had been the safety net. College textbooks when she spent her book allowance on spring break, first and last month's rent when she decided to move to New York on a whim, the car repair after she forgot to get insurance. "How much are you short?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "We need a $50,000 loan." She said it so matter-of-factly, as if asking to borrow a sweater. "But here's the thing. Roger's credit is still recovering from his divorce, and mine isn't great after that whole student loan deferment situation." I set my glass down. "So you need me to lend you $50,000. "Not exactly." She leaned forward, eyes pleading. "We need you to co-sign a loan. We'll make all the payments, I promise. You won't have to pay a cent." Every instinct I had developed in 20 years as a financial advisor screamed against this idea. I had seen the aftermath of co-signed loans gone wrong, ruined credit scores, damaged relationships, financial devastation. "Mel, I don't think that's a good idea. Co-signing makes me equally responsible for the debt. If you missed payments, we won't miss any payments," she interrupted, her voice rising. "Roger is starting a new position at his investment firm next month. The salary is incredible, and my interior design business is finally taking off. We'll have this paid off in 2 years, 3 at most." I tried another approach. "What about a smaller wedding? Something more intimate that you could afford without—" "Eleanor, please." Her eyes welled with tears. "This is my one chance at happiness. After everything I've been through, don't I deserve my dream wedding?" I felt the weight of our history pressing down on me. Our parents had died when Melissa was only 19, leaving me at 26 to become her guardian and support system. I had postponed my own graduate studies to take care of her, working 2 jobs to keep her in college. Maybe that was why I had always found it hard to say no to her, some lingering sense of responsibility, of wanting to ensure her happiness at any cost. "Let me think about it," I said finally. "I need to review my finances and consider this carefully." She hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Elle. You're the best sister anyone could ask for." Over the next week, I did my due diligence. I researched Roger Harrington, finding his LinkedIn profile that confirmed his position as a junior partner at Meridian Investments. His social media suggested an affluent lifestyle, sailing trips, expensive restaurants, designer clothes. I checked court records and found his divorce had been finalized 2 years earlier. Nothing seemed immediately concerning. I called Melissa and suggested we meet with a loan officer together so I could better understand the terms. She agreed enthusiastically, and 3 days later, we sat in the office of Carla Winters at First National Bank. "The loan terms are fairly standard," Carla explained, sliding papers across her desk. 60 months at 7.8% interest, monthly payments of approximately $1,000. I reviewed the paperwork carefully. "And what happens if the primary borrowers default?" Carla's expression turned serious. "As a co-signer, you would become fully responsible for the remaining balance, plus any late fees or penalties. It would impact your credit score just as it would theirs." Melissa squeezed my hand under the table. "That won't happen, I promise." I looked at my sister, her hopeful expression, the excitement that had animated her for weeks. Despite my reservations, I couldn't bring myself to be the one who crushed her dreams. "I'll do it," I said finally. "But Melissa, I need your absolute promise that you'll make every payment on time." "I swear," she said solemnly. "Roger and I both swear. We'll sign something if you want." "That won't be necessary," I replied. "Your word should be enough." But as I signed my name on that dotted line, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that I might regret this decision. The months leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Melissa threw herself into planning with characteristic enthusiasm, while I tried to quell my growing unease. The initial $50,000 loan seemed to be just the beginning. There were constant calls about unexpected expenses, an upgraded floral package, premium open bar options, a videographer who specialized in cinematic wedding films. "It's just another $5,000, she would say. "Roger and I can cover it." But something felt off. I never saw Roger at any of the planning meetings or vendor appointments. When I asked Melissa about their finances, her answers became increasingly vague. "Everything's fine," she would insist. "Roger's new position is even better than we expected." 2. Months before the wedding, I received an unexpected call from my bank. "Ms. Winters, this is Sandra from the Fraud Prevention Department at First National. We've noticed some unusual activity on your accounts and wanted to verify a few transactions." My stomach dropped. "What kind of activity?" "There have been several attempts to access your investment accounts from IP addresses in the Caribbean. Someone also tried to increase the credit limit on your cards." I froze, my mind racing. "I haven't made any of those requests, and I'm not in the Caribbean." After securing my accounts with new passwords and additional authentication, I sat in my kitchen, hands shaking. Who would try to access my financial information? The timing seemed too coincidental. That evening, I drove to Melissa and Roger's apartment, determined to have an honest conversation. I needed to know if they were in financial trouble, if that might explain the desperate attempts to access additional funds. When I arrived, their neighbor was retrieving mail from the lobby. "Oh, are you looking for Melissa and Roger? They left yesterday with a ton of luggage. Mentioned something about a pre-wedding trip to scout honeymoon locations." I frowned. "Melissa didn't mention any trip to me." The neighbor shrugged. "They seemed in a hurry, said they'd be gone for a couple of weeks." My calls to Melissa went straight to voicemail. Roger's phone was not in service. With growing panic, I drove to their apartment building's management office and explained that I was concerned about my sister's welfare. The property manager checked his records. Mr. Harrington provided notice last month that they would be vacating the apartment. Their lease ends in 2 weeks. That's impossible, I said. They're getting married in 2 months. They'd need somewhere to live. He showed me the notice, signed by both Melissa and Roger. They paid the penalty for breaking the lease early. Everything's in order. I drove home in a daze, trying to make sense of what was happening. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I got up and began methodically, searching for any information that might explain their sudden departure. I started with social media. Melissa's Instagram showed no recent posts, but when I checked her tagged photos, I found something disturbing. A travel agent in Miami had posted a photo 3 days earlier. Bon voyage to this lovely couple starting their new life in the Cayman Islands. Relocation specialists. Tax haven living. The photo showed Melissa and Roger beaming in front of a private aircraft. My hands trembled as I expanded my search. I found Roger's secondary email in an old message Melissa had forwarded to me months ago. Wedding vendor recommendations. Using that email, I located a professional profile on an international finance forum where he described himself as a wealth relocation specialist focusing on offshore asset protection. The pieces were falling into place, painting a picture I didn't want to see. With a sense of dread, I logged into the loan account Melissa had set up for the wedding expenses. The balance showed the full $50,000 withdrawn 2 days after approval. According to the transaction history, the funds had been transferred to Alpine Lodge Resort. But when I called the venue the next morning, they had no record of any deposit or reservation under either Melissa or Roger's name. The stunning reality crashed down on me like a physical blow. There was no wedding. There had possibly never been plans for one. The $50,000 loan that bore my name and financial responsibility had been taken under false pretenses. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by printouts and notes, as the full extent of the betrayal sank in. My own sister had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to secure a loan with no intention of repaying it. And I had fallen for it completely. That afternoon, still reeling, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. Melissa, androjury.newlife.seek6. The message contained only a photo and a short note. The photo showed Melissa and Roger on a beach, champagne glasses raised toward the camera. The message read, "Thanks for the wedding gift, sis. Don't worry about sending a card." I felt physically ill. 25 years of sisterhood, of trust and shared history, reduced to this cruel mockery. The $50,000 now hung over my head like a guillotine blade, threatening the financial security I had worked so hard to build. My first instinct was to call the police, report the fraud. But as a financial advisor, I knew the reality. I had willingly co-signed the loan. There was no legal fraud, only a moral one. The bank would have no reason to release me from the obligation. That night, after hours of tears and disbelief, something shifted inside me. The shock and hurt crystallized into a cold, clear resolve. I would not let this destroy me. I would find a way to turn this betrayal around. I began methodically documenting everything. The fake wedding venue, the pattern of deception, the evidence of premeditated departure. I contacted the bank and explained the situation, not expecting much, but creating a record of my good faith. As predicted, they sympathetically but firmly reminded me of my legal obligation to repay the loan. "I understand," I told them. "I'll begin making payments next month." Next, I consulted an attorney specializing in international financial recovery. Victoria Kane listened to my story with professional detachment. The Cayman Islands have strong banking privacy laws. Recovering funds will be challenging, but not impossible, she explained. However, there's another approach we could consider. She outlined a strategy that was less about immediate recovery and more about long-term consequences. Your sister and her partner may think they're untouchable offshore, but if they've committed fraud, not just against you but as a pattern, there are international financial crime units that take great interest in such cases. What would you need from me? I asked. Everything you have, and possibly more. We need to establish not just this incident, but a pattern of behavior. That began my second job, investigator. By day, I continued my work as a financial advisor, now making monthly payments on the fraudulent loan. By night, I dug into Roger Harrington's past. I discovered his real name was Robert Harrison, with a history of investment schemes across 3 states. I found 2 previous marriages, both to wealthy women who had suffered significant financial losses shortly after the relationships ended. Most importantly, I found connections to 3 other cases with similar patterns: romantic relationships leading to financial exploitation. Each discovery was meticulously documented and shared with Victoria, who was building a case file for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. But I knew this would be a long game. In the meantime, I needed to protect myself. I took a hard look at my finances. The $1,000 monthly loan payment was stretching my budget to the breaking point. I made difficult decisions, downsizing my car, taking on additional clients, cutting all non-essential expenses. I sold jewelry, reduced my retirement contributions, and rented out my spare bedroom to a graduate student. 6 months passed with no word from Melissa. The bank reported the loan as current because I was making the payments. To all external appearances, nothing was amiss. But I remained focused on my quiet pursuit of justice. My breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The graduate student, renting my spare room, Aiden, was studying computer science with a focus on digital forensics. One evening, as I worked at my dining table surrounded by financial records, he asked if I needed technical help. After some hesitation, I shared a simplified version of my situation. Aiden offered his expertise in tracking digital footprints. People leave traces online they don't even realize. With your permission, I could help you find more information. With Aiden's help, we discovered that Roger maintained active social media accounts under yet another alias. These accounts revealed that he and Melissa were now operating a wealth management consultancy in the Cayman Islands, targeting American expatriates looking to optimize their tax situations. Their company website featured testimonials from satisfied clients. Investigation revealed at least 3 of these clients were actually previous victims. Victoria was thrilled with this new evidence. This is exactly what we needed: proof of ongoing fraudulent activity. FinCEN can now coordinate with international authorities. Things moved slowly but deliberately after that. While financial authorities built their case, I continued my disciplined approach to managing the debt. I refinanced the loan to a lower interest rate, took on consulting work for other financial firms, and slowly rebuilt my savings. 1 year after Melissa and Robert's disappearance, I received an unexpected notification. The loan had been paid, in full. Confused, I contacted the bank. "Yes, Ms. Winters, we received a wire transfer yesterday for the remaining balance," the representative confirmed. The payment originated from the Royal Cayman Bank. That evening, another email arrived from the same address as before. "Consider us even. Don't try to find us." I forwarded the message to Victoria, who called me immediately. "They know they're being investigated. This is an attempt to close at least one avenue of pursuit, but it's too late." 2 weeks later, I received an official communication from FinCEN. Robert Harrison and Melissa Winters were under investigation for multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation. Authorities in the Cayman Islands had frozen their accounts pending the investigation. I felt no triumph, only a hollow vindication. The sister I had known and loved was effectively gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized or understood. 3 months later, my doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. When I opened the door, I found a gaunt, subdued version of my sister standing on my porch. "Can I come in?" Melissa asked, her voice small and uncertain. I silently stepped aside, allowing her to enter the house she had once visited so casually, so confidently. We sat in my living room, the space between us filled with unspoken betrayals. Robert left me, she finally said. Once the accounts were frozen, he disappeared with whatever cash he could gather. I've been detained and questioned for weeks. She looked up at me, eyes brimming with tears. They said you were the one who started the investigation. I met her gaze steadily. Yes. Why didn't you just call me? Ask me what was happening. We could have worked something out. The audacity of her question momentarily stunned me. Then I laughed, a sound without humor. Worked. Something out? After you deliberately deceived me, stole $50,000, and then mocked me for it. You didn't leave me a phone number, Melissa. You left me with a debt and a photo of you celebrating your theft. She looked away. I never thought it would go this far. Robert said we'd send money back once we were settled. But there was always another investment, another opportunity. And you believed him, just like you expected me to believe you. Melissa wiped at her tears. I have nothing left, Eleanor. They've seized everything. I had to borrow money just to fly back. I felt the familiar pull, the lifetime habit of rescuing my sister, of putting her needs before my own. But something had fundamentally changed in me over the past 15 months. I had discovered a resilience I never knew I possessed, a capacity to prioritize my own well-being. What do you want from me, Melissa? I need somewhere to stay while I figure things out, just for a little while. I considered her request. The spare room was still rented to Aiden, who had become both a friend and ally. My finances were recovering, but still fragile. More importantly, the trust between us was not just broken, but shattered. No, I said quietly. I can't have you in my home. Her expression hardened. After everything I've been through? I made a mistake, Eleanor. A terrible mistake. But I'm still your sister. Yes, you are. And that's why I'll do this instead. I handed her a folder I'd prepared over the past year, just in case this moment ever came. This contains information about 3 things. A women's transitional housing program with an opening next week. A job opportunity at a design firm owned by a client of mine who's willing to give you a chance. And the contact information for a therapist who specializes in rebuilding after relationship trauma and financial abuse. She stared at the folder, then back at me. You're not going to help me yourself? This is me helping you, Melissa. Not by rescuing you, but by offering you a path to rescue yourself. The housing program requires participation in financial responsibility classes. The job is entry-level, but with growth potential if you prove yourself. The therapy will be partially covered by the victim support services referenced in the first brochure. Her hands trembled slightly as she took the folder. I don't recognize you anymore, she whispered. I could say the same. But the difference is, I like who I've become. I stood up, signaling the end of our conversation. Call the housing program tomorrow. Tell them Eleanor Winters referred you. They're expecting your call. After Melissa left, I sat in my quiet house feeling a complex mixture of emotions. There was sadness for what had been lost, but also a profound sense of peace. I had faced one of my worst fears, financial betrayal, the collapse of a central relationship, and had not just survived, but emerged stronger. Over the following months, I monitored Melissa's progress from a distance. She moved into the transitional housing and started the design job. According to my client, she was punctual and hardworking, if subdued. We maintained minimal contact, occasional text messages, brief updates. 6 months after her return, she sent me an email. I never properly apologized to you. I was ashamed, then defensive, then desperate. But the truth is simple. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way, and there's no excuse for that. I'm working with my therapist on making amends, but I know some damage can't be undone. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that I understand now what I threw away, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I read the message several times before responding. Thank you for your apology. Healing takes time for both of us. I'm proud of the work you're doing. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was acknowledgement, a small bridge across a vast chasm. 2 years after the day I signed that fateful loan document, I received a promotion to senior partner at my firm. The announcement came with a significant salary increase and an expanded client portfolio. At the celebration dinner, my colleagues raised their glasses. To Eleanor, my managing partner said, whose integrity, resilience, and strategic thinking have made her an invaluable asset to our firm and to her clients. As applause filled the restaurant, I caught a glimpse of myself reflected in the window. I saw a woman who had been tested by betrayal and emerged not bitter, but wiser. A woman who had learned to balance compassion with boundaries, generosity with self-protection. My phone buzzed with a text message from Melissa. Congratulations on the promotion, well deserved. I smiled slightly as I tucked the phone away. The journey back to trust would be long, perhaps endless. But I was no longer defined by what had been done to me, only by how I had responded. That night, I updated the final entry in the journal I had kept throughout this ordeal. I used to think strength meant carrying others' burdens at any cost to myself. I now understand that true strength lies in standing firmly in your own worth, even when those closest to you fail to see it. The security I've rebuilt isn't just financial, it's the unshakable knowledge that no betrayal can diminish who I am or what I'm capable of. Some lessons come at an unbearable cost, but once paid, that wisdom belongs to you forever. I closed the journal and placed it on my bookshelf, not hidden away, but not prominently displayed either. Just another chapter in a life still being, written by my hand alone. The next morning, I woke early and prepared for a meeting with a new client, a woman recently divorced after discovering her husband's financial infidelities. As I reviewed her file, I felt a deep sense of purpose. My personal experience had transformed me not just as an individual, but as a financial advisor. I now brought a unique perspective to clients facing similar betrayals. The professional, knowledge of recovery processes combined with genuine empathy for the emotional devastation. You'll get through this, I would tell her, with the quiet authority of someone who had walked that path. And you might be surprised by who you become along the way. In the end, what my sister never understood was that the loan she had manipulated, me into co-signing, had indeed been a gift, not to her, but to me. It had forced me to discover reservoirs of resilience, wisdom, and self-respect that might otherwise have remained untapped. The price had been steep, but the return on that investment was beyond calculation. As I gathered my materials for the meeting, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. Shoulders back, gaze direct, a woman comfortable in her own authority. I smiled at myself, a silent acknowledgement of how far I had come. The betrayal that was meant to diminish me had instead become the foundation upon which I built a stronger self. Not because I had predicted or prevented it, but because of what I chose to do in its aftermath. In that choice, to rise rather than crumble, to rebuild rather than retreat, I had found not just recovery, but transformation. I didn't need to shout my victory or display my wounds. The truth resided quietly within me. I had not merely survived, I had transcended. And that knowledge, unlike money or relationships or status, could never be taken away.